Welcome back to We're Not Your Typical. Today we have on the show Lisa and Jemma from Send Mummies.
We had a great chat today with these ladies talking all things DLA, Blue Badge and EHCPs.
We're 4 Send Mums with 4 different stories, sharing our journeys all together. Hi girls, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Hi.
Lisa, Gemma from the Instagram handle Send Mummies. And that's where we guys have been speaking for a good few weeks now, haven't we?
Yep.
Whenever we have any conversation, any advice, you girls are great. So we thought it'd be really nice for you to come on, because so far with any of the episodes that we've had, we actually haven't had any other Send Mummies on our show. And I think for people that are listening in that feel so alone and feel so unknown, I feel like if there's 4 of us sitting in a room together, just sharing our stories and just having a bit of a general chit chat, I think it will help a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I thought what would be nice is just for you to individually introduce yourselves, who you are, your family dynamics, where you are, your story, and we'll go from there.
You want to go first?
Yeah. So I'm Gemma. I've got 5 boys. My eldest has autism. He also has hypermobility and pica. He's at an independent college now with an EHCP. My 2 middle children don't hold any diagnosis at the moment. My 6-year-old Hugo, who everyone would know from our page, he is autistic with global developmental delay, severe learning disability. He's non-verbal. He attends a severe learning disability school in Hertfordshire. And then my youngest is Miles. He holds the same diagnosis as Hugo, but he is also hyperlexic, which means that he can write. His speech is coming along. A lot of it started with delayed echolalia and stolt language, but now a lot of that is becoming functional.
Sorry, how old did you say he was?
Miles is 5, just turned 5.
Okay, so same age as Callie. In year 1? Or reception?
No, he's reception.
Okay.
Reception. So literally just had his birthday. He's at the same school as Hugo. Only started there in September, and he has made so much progress in the last 6 months that we are possibly looking at moving him to a moderate learning.
Wow.
Soon.
So 5
that gives a lot of
kids.
hope.
5 boys, yeah.
5 boys. You're amazing. And
All
yet
crazy.
your first child was autistic. And
Yes.
I think this is a personal question to ask, but obviously I'm sure lots of people think it that have Send children. And the same applied for me too. Obviously, Callie is my first and she has a diagnosis. You continued and went for 4 more.
Finley went under the radar
Okay.
for a long time.
Okay.
He didn't actually receive his diagnosis until he was 13.
Wow.
He had a couple of wobbles in primary, but because he was my first, I didn't know any different. Back then, I didn't know anything about autism.
I hear that a lot.
He seemed to struggle with a lot of social emotional things, but because he wasn't delayed, it was never flagged, certainly not in an educational setting. And then even when he did begin to struggle, the school was always like, well, which he wasn't. He was masking, and they just didn't pick up on that. So he actually went into autistic burnout when he was secondary school. We ended up 18 months out of education with Finn. Which was very difficult. I had to fight for the diagnosis. I had to fight for the EHC, fight for support.
And who helped you with that? Because I feel like that's where lots of people get stuck.
I joined local Send support groups initially that were on Facebook. That started with Advanced, Families in Focus. Made connections there, learnt how broken the system was. And then with a bit of advice for everything.
I just don't understand why the system is so broken when there are so many non-typical children out there. I don't understand how everyone has got to fight so hard to get an EHCP, to get your child into the right setting of a school.
Yeah.
Especially when your son now is in college and Jade, Bailey Bo is 3.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like there's been any change with any sort of help or support.
No. And that's partly our reason why we're doing this, really.
Yeah.
Is for awareness and help, because there is nothing out there.
There's not enough funding across the board, though.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what it comes down to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that comes from central government.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we make videos all the time where we take a step a local authority. You've got to direct it somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily their fault. They don't have enough funding themselves. We don't have enough schools. Mainstream schools don't have funding to support the children that can and should be accessing a mainstream setting. I think statistics show that of all children with SEN, only 5% of them require an EHCP and require a special setting. But because mainstream schools don't have the funding to adequately support the ones that can academically access the mainstream curriculum, they're forced into specialist settings or independent schools, and that just creates a knock-on effect.
It doesn't suit them.
No.
And actually can do more harm than good. So how do we change this? Because I feel like I want to change the world.
Don't we all?
I feel like
Don't we all? Yeah.
How do they get more money? How do we change this? Because I'm hearing more and more kids that are getting refused things, and there's not enough.
I think it's about educating people and educating parents about what their children are entitled to. And we all know how much that can take out of a parent fighting. And if we're not fighting for one thing, we're fighting for another. Yeah. But it's giving parents those tools to know how to fight the system. And you shouldn't have to, and no one should have to, but the position we're in now, it's not going to be an overnight fix.
Yeah.
So if you know what you're entitled to and you have that confidence to fight that, you will eventually get what your child needs, hopefully in time, before there's been any breakdown of placement or whatever they need at the time. But yeah, at the moment, there isn't any kind of fix, is there? And I know that there's been lots of talk around forming the SEN system at the moment.
I just don't know. So tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'm Lisa. I have not got 5 boys, but I have got 2. My eldest is autistic, hearing impaired, and he is a bilateral hearing aid user.
And Can you tell us what that is?
So he has a diagnosis of conductive fluctuating bilateral hearing loss, which is basically it just means that he has hearing loss in both ears. It's fluctuating hearing loss, so it goes from moderate to severe. And bilateral just means that he wears hearing aids on both ears. So he didn't get diagnosed with autism until he was 7.
Because they always blame the hearing?
Because they always blame the hearing. And there is an overlap in some things. If you've got hearing loss and you're autistic, you can present similar in some delays. But he doesn't have any learning disability. He is academically able. He attends a mainstream school and he is thriving. He has an EHCP, both my boys do. My youngest has multiple diagnoses. He is autistic, global development delay, severe hypermobility. He has he has something really complex called manner-spine lectin deficiency, which is to do with his immune system. So there's health diagnosis there with him as well. He went to a specialist nursery, made loads and loads of progress. Now he's in a very small main school.
Which is working well for him?
Which is working fantastic for him.
And he has a one-to-one?
He has a one-to-one. Yeah, he has a one-to-one, not all day, but for core subjects. These classes are very small, so they're heavily staffed anyway.
And tell me, sorry, I didn't, the ages of your boys.
So my eldest is nearly 13 and my youngest is 5. Yeah.
And Bailey also is severely hypermobile as well.
Yeah.
How does that affect them at that age? Is it still the same as when they were? Because Bailey can't really walk in a straight line.
Yeah.
She falls over everything. Her balance is absolutely horrific.
And she was late to walking.
And she was very late to walk as well.
So he is under multiple professionals for his hypermobility because he's also got something called like lordosis of the spine. So he's under quite a few professionals about the way he walks because he walks with a wide gait. So he kind of waddles a little bit when he walks.
Bailey, isn't it?
Bailey.
Yeah, and he's under Great Ormond Street for it. And when I spoke to them at his recent appointment, they kind of likened it to it's like he's walking on sand all of the day. So he does have specialist insoles. I don't know if your daughter does.
No.
He has specialist insoles to help him kind of walk a bit straighter, and he's under orthotics for that. So there's kind of some referrals that can be made.
Because I actually had a referral for physio to do with her hypermobility, and we went for our first session, and they basically signed us off and said there's nothing they can do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so no, we had physio. Physio sent us to orthotics to get specialist insoles. It's all to do with the feet because he's extremely hypermobile in his feet. So being able to stand up straight, kind of hold his body straight is really difficult for him. Yeah, but I did kind of like that analogy of likening it to walking on sand. 'Cause it gives you an idea of how that must feel every day.
I think with you, Jade, you are so at the beginning, even though you very much know that Bailey Bo is autistic, delayed and has hypermobility. Yeah. With Jade's circumstance, and it's really interested to ask you girls, because obviously you're further along the way, you've been pushed away so many times by paediatricians. They said, come back when Bailey Bo was 3. She came back at 3. They said, well, they'll see her straight away. She went back there. Bailey's now 3 and it's nearly 3 months.
3 months.
So 3 months later, they basically said, sorry, there's a waiting list. You'll just have to wait. So Bailey has no diagnosis apart from a global delay diagnosis.
Yeah.
But nothing else.
No.
And
I've been on waiting lists for everything. Thankfully, we've been able to do a lot of things privately.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if we couldn't, I would have absolutely nothing. I mean, I have no speech and language therapy. I have no occupational therapy.
EHCP?
Nope. I've just in the process of starting that. But thankfully, she has speech and language and occupational, but I have to do that all privately.
Yeah.
And through her nursery, they were able to give me a one-to-one for her, because otherwise they wouldn't have really been allowed. She wouldn't have been allowed in there without having a one-to-one.
Yeah.
So I've actually had no help whatsoever.
So I think
from
what
anyone.
we talk about quite a lot is that you don't need a diagnosis to access most of the support you're entitled to. And when we say that, obviously lots of children and families we support, their child is on the pathway of diagnosis, but they haven't had their official diagnosis because, you know, wait lists, depending on where you are in the country, they could be 2 years, they can be 3 years. In the meantime, you are entitled to this support. You know, DLA, EHCPs, and with EHCP may come speech and language therapy, OT through the EHCP route rather than on the waiting list route.
Fine, okay.
There are ways and means of doing it prior to diagnosis. So generally what we, I don't know about families you've worked with, Gem, but what I hear is lots of families will just say, well, we got the diagnosis, we got a piece of paper and we got discharged. And that was it.
That was
so
me.
all the support, you don't have to wait for that diagnosis. It's important to still push forward with it prior to that.
Yeah,
But how? That's where we are. So in my circumstance, Callie has autism and global delay.
Okay.
The paediatrician said, great, see ya. And we've been discharged.
Yeah.
So we have zero support as well in regards to speech, OT. The school, since she started school, and I know that you said that as well, since Callie started school, she has progressed so incredibly well. And I feel like that's the best intervention for her. But we're not getting anything else. And I feel like that's where a lot of parents, including myself, think, oh, I'll just sit down then and not do anything. Where's the fight? Who do we fight to? How can we get more support for our children? I feel like that's where you girls could probably help us a bit more. And that's where we've seen your Instagram page, and you share a lot of advice.
Yeah.
But what advice could you give us today about where we are with our children?
Well, I think we'd probably agree that the best intervention school. And for the children who are nonverbal or severely autistic, like getting into a specialist setting is the key, because they have in-house therapies. And like Lisa said, with the EHCP, that opens doors to NHS, OT and SALT. And having that intervention put in place in a school environment is the best type of intervention. We see parents a lot of the time who pay private for speech and language therapy, and it's all based around trying to get the child to talk. That shouldn't be the goal in speech and language therapy for a child who's autistic and nonverbal. The goal should be communication. It should be finding a way that your child can communicate with you, not expecting your child to communicate in the way that you communicate. So intervention in school, getting the right school setting, and this is why getting the EHCP is so important. So we make videos all the time explaining why sections B, F and I of an EHCP are so important, and it's because they feed into each other. So we need to be making sure that our children are having the right assessments during the assessment period. We're seeing these fall in short with the NHS and the local
Who will
authorities.
help that though? How would I as a parent know what assessments I need in order to get the right EHCP for my child? I've got one now, and I happen to spend a lot of money, like so many parents do, getting every assessment under the sun to make sure that she gets the EHCP, because the first EHCP was declined for us. But how do we know? Who tells us this? Who gives us the guidance?
Well, there's bits of guidance in law stating what an EHCP should include, and we've put all that on our website. But I mean, there's no one really holding up signposts and letting us know. Even when we get the diagnosis from a paediatrician, it doesn't really include anything about an EHCP or the next steps, what comes next.
Yeah.
So it is really, I suppose, pages like ours and doing podcasts like this, people raising awareness, advocating for the same community.
EHCP to me is so overwhelming. I don't know where to start with it.
Yeah.
I haven't got a clue. I mean, my nursery is obviously helping me do their section, but I don't know what I need to do.
Yeah.
I think you've always got a right to ask for, it's always a reasonable request. There are some things, like Gemma said, that have to go into an EHCP, like an educational psychologist report has to be a part of an EHCP. But there are things that you can ask for reasonable requests. So like you say, if your daughter's non-speaking, non-verbal, it would be reasonable to ask for speech and language therapy to come in and support that child. You know, even for Callie, if you're saying that, you know, you would like support with speech and language therapy, you can request that from the local authority.
So just to butt in there, with our circumstance, and it might be something that you speak to a lot of parents about,
Yeah.
I live in one borough, but the school's in another borough.
Yeah.
So we've been declined any type of support because the borough's not accepting it to go to, they're not able to pass it over to the next borough. That's what I've been told. So she gets no speech, and even though she is now verbal, she's still speech delayed, and she very much needs a speech therapist.
And it's not always about speech, is it? It's about communication.
Sure.
Yeah. It's about speech and language therapy.
Yeah.
Involves communication.
Yeah. That's just one bit of advice I'd love to share with anyone. If anyone's looking at specialist schools or schools, think about your borough, because it matters. And then maybe you guys could probably back me up with that. I know.
Impossible.
What
There are no
happens-
schools
I
in
know.
our borough.
Are the two
What do you do? You move?
Are the two different boroughs under a different NHS trust?
Yes.
Because that's what comes into play
Yeah.
with funding things like therapies. It's the NHS trust being different, not necessarily just the borough, because the borough can be different and still be under the same NHS
Right.
trust.
It must be the trust.
It's where the notional funding comes from.
Yeah.
That can be an issue. But the local authority, if speech and language therapy, any kind of therapy is a provision in an EHCP, remember that is a legally enforceable document. The people responsible for that document, a lot of parents think it's the school. They always go to the school first to make a complaint that something isn't being provided, something isn't being followed through. The responsibility of an EHCP is of the local authority. And the local authority that's in charge of your child's EHCP, normally your home borough.
I need to look at moving.
I actually have a friend that
I'm
has just moved
serious.
boroughs because she found a school that was perfect for her daughter. So she sold her house and moved on.
We see a lot of parents doing it.
Yeah.
Being closer to be with the school.
Boroughs.
Yeah.
I find that so difficult because obviously I have two other children and I'll be uprooting them. Like, it's so difficult to know what to do, what's right, what's wrong, what's right for you.
So I always wish I could get a magic wand and someone say, do this, be there, do that.
Yeah.
But there's no magic wand.
There
it's
isn't.
working it out
and
for
like
yourself.
Gemma said, you rely heavily on, I mean, now there's social media. Back when, because I have a brother who's diagnosed autistic, I say he's my little brother, like as if he's tiny, but he's not. He's nearly 30 now, and he was diagnosed.
Delayed.
Yeah,
for you to call him little brother.
Yeah, and I think just because he's my only younger brother, I got two older, and he's my only younger, so I always just call him my little brother. Yeah. And he was diagnosed when he was 6, so we're talking years ago, and there wasn't social media, there wasn't any support, and I remember him getting diagnosed and my parents, the only thing they'd ever heard about autism, Rain Man, because it was a movie out. They had no idea. I remember being 15 when he was diagnosed, going onto Google, making a folder in the big PCs that were back in them days, you know, the big ones.
Loved them.
That used to have the dial-up internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that, and I was on that, and researching autism for my parents at the time, who had no idea what was around. So back then, it was very different to now, because there is, although you're still fighting a system, there is a whole community of people out there that you can access to just through your phone, you know, through the laptop, whatever you're on. But back then there wasn't.
And going on to this, I looked on your website just to understand even more about you. And you mentioned that you've always worked and supported families with children and people with autism. Do you think that's come from having a brother that is autistic?
That is where it came from. Yeah. So when my brother was diagnosed, I was, because there's quite an age gap between me and my little brother. There's 10 years. So I was just in sixth form doing my A-levels, and I had applied to lots of universities to do midwifery because I wanted to be a midwife. And then when he got diagnosed with autism, and we had lots of, I mean, the lady who was his autism advisor back then still works in the local authority now. And she came and I was so interested, and she used to run like a little group on Saturdays, which she still runs. I asked to volunteer there. Not in our borough, but it was for children with autism. So she would pick me up and I'd go there with her. And then I got so interested in what is autism. And there was so much that I was researching that I changed my degree. So I ended up doing early years inclusion because they didn't have an autism specific degree back then. That was 2006. And yeah, I did my degree. And in my last year, I focused on autism. And I did my dissertation on the effects of including autistic children into mainstream school.
Wow.
Yeah, that was back in 2000.
Giving me goosebumps. You're amazing.
Yeah. And it was all to do with my little brother, because at the time I hadn't heard anything. I didn't know what autism was.
We say this, don't we? For 3.5, 4 years ago, we had no idea what autism was.
No, Bailey's my third. My son, my eldest, does have ADHD, and then my middle one is typical.
And sometimes you only know autism from what you've had experience with before.
Yeah.
You know, so all of our children will present very differently, but they all have a diagnosis.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it so difficult when it comes to autism, is that every child is different and every child has different needs.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult seeing, and, you know, as you said about social media, yes, it's amazing and it means that we can share awareness and we're doing what we're doing and we're advocating so much, but then it can also be quite a tricky place because you can look at other children and, you know, you do compare, even they say don't compare, you do compare.
Of course you do.
I had a message the other day from someone, and it's someone I know, and it wasn't in a bad way, but she also has an autistic child who I would say is more speech delayed than Callie. And she said now that Callie's doing swimming and she's talking more and she's going to parties, do you not have that anxiety about her having autism anymore? And it really threw me because of course I do. And
it's a strange comment to make.
I share my life on Instagram, which is my choice, but people only see snippets. So the swimming lessons are 6 p.m. on a Friday with a 1-to-1 because she wasn't able to be in a typical class. The parties, they're hell for me.
Yeah.
They're hell, you know, but I will maybe snip one bit where she's smiling happy, or where she's hugging a friend. But, you know, my child, even to this day, at a party on Sunday was on the floor doing starfishes and everyone was, come on, Callie. And they want to baby her and look after her, which is lovely. The kids are great.
Yeah.
But people see what they only...
What you want them to see.
What I show them, exactly.
People only see what you want them to see. And I did post something the other day because I'm very aware that I will post videos of Stanley. And we post videos of all of our boys, don't we? But if I'm posting somewhere out of Stanley is very sociable. So he has significant communication difficulties, but he's very sociable. He will go anywhere. He loves doing anything. And actually that can be quite difficult because sitting in is not an option for him. Staying at home is not an option for him. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
So
if you ever want to do something at 9 a.m, I'm around.
Oh, I'll be there at 5. Like we are up and we're out.
Let's go.
And so I post up lots of places that I'm at. And we will get sometimes comments, I wish I could take my son there. But what you're not seeing is my other son is not with me because my other son can't access that.
Yeah.
So he's at home with my husband. So we have to separate as a family. And I have to, you know, either or, me or my husband have got one of our children at home, one outside. And like you say, we need to show snippets. And we made the choice not to show. And there is a place for it on social media, but we have made the choice not to show meltdowns on ours, just because we haven't asked permission off our children to be on social media.
I did it once on TikTok and I got absolutely rinsed. And
did you?
Yeah, absolutely. So many people related and other people like,
I do think there is
you?
definitely a place for it because if we're going to show awareness, then we need to show awareness of everything.
And it is important to show the lows as well as the highs.
Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying. They haven't given permission.
Yeah.
And people say, you know, whenever I do a Q&A on social media, most of my questions are you going to take your children off social media now? Yeah. You know, they haven't given consent. Is it okay to do what you're doing? It's my choice as a parent, her mum.
Yeah.
And I feel like we now all have pages and we share our children, know our limits to what we feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and that's right. And that's why when the other day I did post something because I had taken Stanley to Belgium. It was one of my random ideas. Don't know why I did it.
That's amazing.
And I posted up Christmas markets. And, you know, you post the lovely photos where they're all smiling. And then I posted something after that because I was like, actually, let me show you the reality of what's happening here. And I did post a picture of him standing at Calais on the border, wouldn't move. And that happened all throughout the weekend. But you only see snippets, like you say.
Yeah.
So it's kind of important not to compare, although we do.
Yeah.
You're only seeing that it looks like, oh, wow, she's taking him to the Christmas markets. My child would never manage that.
Yeah.
Mine didn't manage that. You only saw a one photo that I managed to
But that's
take.
what we choose to
Yeah.
That's what we choose to show. It's like my son, he's nearly 11 and he's ADHD. And I was going to actually start sharing him on my social media as well. And I asked him and I said to him, how would you feel of me doing that? And he was actually okay about it. But then my husband and I were thinking about it. He's starting secondary school next year. You don't know how kind these kids can be on social media. So we actually decided not to show him on social media, which I think for us was the best decision.
Yeah, my eldest asked not to be on it. So I don't, he doesn't mind if it's the back of his head.
Yeah.
But he was like, I don't want to be on it. And for those reasons, you know, he's our biggest supporter, bless him, isn't he? Like he always watches. But he's like, just don't put my face on it. And I have to respect that. You know, he's able to tell me that.
I mean, he said to me he wouldn't mind being on it if he was with Bailey, but not doing something on his own.
That's right. Yeah.
And
what about you, Gemma? Because obviously you've got quite an age difference with your children as well.
So my older children are in some videos, not very, very many. And I asked permission beforehand.
And they're happy.
And they're all happy to do it, And in fact, at school, because obviously I've got 2 in secondary, 1 in college. The 2 that are in secondary, most of their friends actually follow us.
Oh, wow.
I have to stop you there because you don't look old enough to have college and secondary school, the both of you. It's mental.
I feel it. I feel old enough. I feel old enough.
I get that.
So what's your aim with your page? Because obviously I feel like you girls help so many people, even to the point Mrs. Hinch reposted
She
you.
did.
I saw
she did. That was
it.
right. So we only started. This was Gemma's idea.
Yeah.
So we met just because our children both went to the same specialist autism nursery. And Stanley and Miles are in the same year. They're a year younger than Callie. And they were there for 2.5 years, weren't they? And Hugo was there as well before.
Yeah.
And we just got talking, and we both shared the same goal. And I mean, it took a while for us to get talking, didn't it?
It did, yeah. I think we spent like a whole year just not speaking to each other. Well, not speaking to anyone.
Not for a reason, you know. You're just at the school gate, and you're like, I don't know. And
you're just the mum at the
different
nursery.
pickup times, and we were just there. And then we just got talking, didn't we? And it was because of our eldest boys both got refusals to assess, didn't they? And then you were telling me what to do. She was like, "This is what you need to do for EHCP," because you heard me talking to someone about it, and you were like, "I know what to do with that." And I was like, "Oh, okay," because we have different knowledge in different areas.
Yeah.
So she went through the EHCP route with me, and now obviously her knowledge has now come down to me. But at the time, it was different areas. My favourite thing to focus on is behaviour. So challenging behaviour, you know, communication is behaviour, and etc. But that's where I'm at. But then Gemma shared it with me. We got talking, and then we started talking then, didn't we, on the school run?
How long ago was this? Sorry.
2 years ago.
Oh, so you've only been doing this for about 2 years?
No, we've only been doing this for about 11 months.
Oh, wow.
So it was last year. It was near last Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's been about a year.
About a year,
now.
about a year now.
It was before Christmas. It was actually my personal TikTok account that I renamed it Send Mummy originally, and started making some videos and just chucking them out there and seeing what happened. Then one video went a bit mad, and I started getting all these inboxes, and it was too much for me to respond to everyone.
It's overwhelming, isn't it?
So I was like, Lisa, I need you to come and help me. Come and do this with me.
She was like, would you do the Instagram? I said, if my face doesn't have to be on it, I'll do it with you. I mean, that's changed now. If my face is now on it.
She moans every time.
If I'm ever on it, it's because I was forced to be on it. If I'm ever doing any kind of video, Gemma forced me to. And then we started that, didn't we? And then it was...
Yeah, and it just kind of took off. I think there's obviously a lot of advocating accounts out there that are showing their own personal journeys and everything. But in terms of
help,
and information,
learning the system and learning how to fight a system that is broken, which no parent, like Lisa said before, no parent should ever be in that position of having to do that. But seems as we do have to do that, we might as well be armed to do that properly. So that's kind of our vision, is to empower STEM parents, to give them the knowledge and the tools that they need and the confidence to be able to do it for themselves. Obviously, we've helped loads of families, and it started off with us just helping people. But that doesn't help people in the long term, because we can do it all for them now. It's not going to be their only battle.
But can I interrupt? Because when people are listening to this, if a family reached out, if one of us reached out and we're at the beginning, or we're trying to apply for an EHCP, or we need help with the DLA form, which is just the worst form in the whole entire world, and I have to do the mobility one now. I've had it on in my kitchen for over a year. I've missed the point, the date, and I'm not doing it. I can't
We'll do it
it
for you.
Thank
We'll
you.
do it for
Thank
you.
you. I have to start
Can you do my EHCP, please?
we can.
So if we reached out and said we need help, what's your service? What could you offer to people?
Right. So I always say it's a bit like a tiered service system. So you've got the social media accounts. We put so much information in our videos.
Yeah.
Like, we're not gatekeeping anything. We want everyone to know the law. We want everyone to know the criteria for everything. We want to give people the tools to be able to do it themselves. So we have on TikTok and on Instagram, we have folders at the top of our page, like playlists. We've categorised everything by DLA, by EHCP, by Blue Badge.
Blue
so
badge.
People can
I
find...
got denied a blue badge.
I will get you one.
I got denied twice a blue badge.
Please get her
Really?
one.
I will
She's
help
not
you with it.
tiered in the right bracket because I don't get top DLA.
That doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter, especially we all live in the same borough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't.
Doesn't
Twice.
Doesn't matter.
They've
Okay.
refunded me twice.
I will help you with that. I will help you with that.
So people can find the information that they need. We then made the website to bring everything in one place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to bring the information and the law criteria for everything in one place. There's loads of useful links on the website as well. So it's not like you can find this bit of information and then you're stuck doing it by yourself. There's another link to something else. If you needed a form for tribunal, or you needed the medical guidance for DLA decision makers for any reason, all those links are on
And
there.
this is a free service.
on the website.
On the
That's
website.
all free.
That's so
So
amazing.
if you've got someone like myself who I am not good with paperwork, I'm not
We
good
see
with,
that a lot. Yeah.
I just don't know what to do when
Yeah,
I see
yeah.
a
How
massive-
to write it.
No, I will just throw it in a
Yeah,
cupboard and that'll be
so-
it. I need someone that's going to say, right, Jade, I will take over this
That
for
is
you.
what we, so we do
That's
offer
what
that.
I
That's the
need.
kind of
That's another step of the service. So
Yeah.
we do paid services where we
Yeah.
will physically
Write
do
it for you.
application
Speak to my
forms
nursery.
and maybe not speak to the nursery.
But we will tell
can
you what
tell
evidence that
we,
you need,
We can
you know.
tell you what you need to ask the nursery for.
So you wouldn't liaise with the nursery.
wouldn't liaise with
See, that's
the
how
school.
lazy I am.
I mean, we could on
we-
your behalf.
We could send you an email to forward to the nursery.
Fine.
But yeah, so we can complete DLA forms. We can challenge DLA decisions by mandatory reconsiderations or by tribunal appeals.
So you're literally a godsend to people. And not a lot of people know that you're out there.
not
We're getting
enough people.
Enough,
more,
yeah.
we're getting more and more busier now. And like you say, we are getting lots of parents who are fighting one battle, they don't want another battle. So they're like, can you just do that for us?
Exactly. I'm so worried of doing it
Yeah.
myself and getting
And
denied.
then having to do it again.
Yes.
That's what we're finding. And obviously we do speak to parents because we can only take on support where we feel that they were entitled to that criteria or they meet that criteria. And I think that's important to us. So we do have like phone calls prior to that, and we talk about actually what evidence have you got to support that criteria. And we wouldn't kind of waste anyone's time if we didn't feel we could take that on and we could actually, support you with that battle.
And in the same breath, there's no trick to getting this, especially with DLA.
Yeah.
Like, if someone doesn't meet criteria, we tell them they don't meet
But
criteria.
isn't it also
Yeah.
wording? Isn't it also wording?
It is, but
Because
it's
then
based
you
on
get
your
denied
child.
it because of one mistake.
Yeah.
Just the whole
It
nursery.
was written wrong.
Yeah.
It's about what they're looking for. And it is, you're right, it is about wording. It's about linking everything back to disability and all the care needs back to disability for DLA specifically. But there is a criteria you need to meet. And we have had that conversation with parents where we've said, actually, we're not going to take this on because we don't think you meet criteria or we haven't got supporting evidence because we've never met that child. So we are basing everything on all the evidence that school are providing. And some parents come to us with lots of evidence that by the end of it, we do feel like we know the child.
Yeah.
But we have had that conversation. We've had quite honest conversations, haven't we, with some parents and said, you can give it a go yourself, but we're not prepared to because we're not quite sure on how we would do this.
So you would be very upfront with the parents
and
to
we
say,
have been.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you now, I will get you medium care rate, whatever you, middle care
We
rate.
can't guarantee anything.
You can't guarantee.
No.
We can only go by what you tell us about your child,
Yeah.
and we will word it in a way that we link everything back to their disability.
Right.
But the information we provide is only what you've told us.
But
or
you've got the right wording for it.
Yeah.
It's
Or-
this
and we'll
impairment
fill it
word
out.
I always hear and
yeah,
see.
Yeah, and it's like, and we'll fill it out for you, and we'll kind of post it to you, ready just to post off to DLA, so it's ready to
Amazing.
go. But we can't, like you say, we can't do that if we don't feel there's enough evidence for that. And evidence doesn't generally come into a new claim form, because new claim forms can be you just telling us about your child, and ultimately you're signing that off as true. We're not.
Yeah.
So we're only writing what you tell us, and then you have to read through that, and then that's on you.
Yeah.
When it comes to challenging a DLA award through mandatory reconsideration, that's where we need evidence of that.
Yeah.
Because there is very strict criteria that you have to meet. So we will take it on and we will write it for you. And we've been very successful so far in the people we've written it for, but that's come with a lot of evidence.
It's a lot of work for you.
Because I feel like I'm with the DLA, I got medium rate, and I
Is it medium or middle?
Middle.
Sorry, got
Yeah.
middle, and I don't know actually the criteria of if she should have been higher or lower.
It's on our website. Yeah, it's all there. It's all there.
Because I mean, is it because of her age she didn't get any higher?
No. So the difference between middle rate care and high rate care is nighttime needs.
Ah, okay.
So
See, with, obviously that's why, because Bailey thankfully sleeps.
Yes.
that
Yeah.
would be
But
why.
I was
That would be
confused why
why.
I didn't get that, because I was up for 6-7 hours a night until last year, but I still got declared middle. Maybe it was the way I did it myself.
Yeah.
I did it very quickly because I
And
didn't
does
know
she
what.
sleep now?
Since this magnesium that I rave
Okay.
about the whole
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
yes. So I wouldn't be eligible for high rate care,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't want to if I didn't need to be.
Yeah,
'cause it's
exactly,
not
yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
But
course.
then two years ago, I should have got the high
Yeah.
rate. I
Yeah.
think.
I didn't realise that was why, because in every other aspect, I
Yeah.
would have thought
Yeah.
that she is high. What do
Yeah,
you call it?
high
Sorry,
needs.
high needs.
Yeah, yeah.
But if it's just down to the sleep, then I'll take the less money for the sleep.
Absolutely. So would
Because
I.
that
So
is
would I.
honestly the one thing that I put her down at 7:30. She plays around in her cot and does whatever, but she doesn't moan. And then she wakes up at 6:30, and I don't hear from her all
Yeah.
night.
She's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
And it's been
it's
like
rare,
that since
isn't
day
it?
one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And every night I put her down, and I think to myself, is tonight going to be the night that she's going to wake up?
yeah.
Like, is it going to be over? But touch wood, it's been,
Hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully it stays that way.
yeah,
It's,
definitely.
Have you noticed, girls, because obviously you've got such well, not so much you, Lisa, but you more, Gemma. I think a lot of us as parents have the fear of the unknown for the children's future. Like, to know that your son is in college and yes, he's got a 1-to-1 and he's got support is just unbelievable. It's so inspiring.
Oh, it's phenomenal. Like it's a testament to the college.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been there since year 10, so he did his GCSEs there as well.
Oh, fantastic.
And it is a testament to getting the right support at the right time.
Sorry, does he have learning disabilities as well? No.
Social emotional.
Can I ask you, and this might sound really not pathetic, a silly question to ask. How do you know if your child has learning disabilities? Is that a weird question to ask? What is it?
No, so you'll be looking at developmental delays, cognitive delays, so working below age-related expectations. So the schooling in our county is separated by MLD and SLD.
Yeah.
So for an MLD school,
Which means moderate
Moderate
learning.
disability. So they so
And then
our
there's SL,
Which is
Severe.
severe.
Yeah.
which I've already been told that I should be looking at for my daughter.
Yeah.
Should I have been told that?
So
Yeah.
well, our county like to put percentages on it, and they don't necessarily hold up in a tribunal. There is overlaps between the different schools, but our county like to say that a child needs to be at least 50% behind their chronological age
Okay.
to meet the criteria for an MLD school, and for SLD 33%.
Wow.
Um,
When you hear
That's
those
not
percentages,
across the
they're very-
country,
they're
though.
Very upsetting.
That's
That's
just
just
our
in our borough.
That's the policy of our county.
Yeah.
But we have been to tribunal with parents whose children have fallen outside of those criteria, outside of those percentages, and they've still got the school that they've gone for. And it shouldn't just be cognitive ability that you're looking into. You should be looking at all aspects of your child. Cohort and having a peer group is really important when choosing a school.
But you don't get a diagnosis how your child has a learning
So if you've got a diagnosis of global developmental delay, that is a learning disability. So the way that that is kind of diagnosed is before the age of 5, a paediatrician will diagnose global developmental delay. And after the child is 5, that will turn into a learning disability. Some paediatricians will even categorise that by mild, moderate or severe.
So if you've been, like Callie's 5, we've been discharged. So how would I know? Or when? I mean, she has got a global delay.
I mean, she can keep the global developmental delay, but yeah, it does mean learning disability.
Wow.
Did you not know that?
No. Did you?
Yeah. I thought you would have known that.
No, I didn't. I didn't. I wouldn't know if she had a learning disability. I guess she does.
Well, if you're developmentally delayed.
Yeah. But currently, even with her report, she's actually catching up academically.
Yeah.
She's on par with her classmates.
That's amazing.
I know.
In every area.
Writing and maths and English, which is,
Can I ask you a question
blown
about,
away. But does that mean that she's still got a learning disability? It's a really silly question to
If she
ask.
has a diagnosis, yeah.
I think if you've been discharged from paediatricians now, your best, it would probably be an educational psychologist to determine her levels in comparison to her chronological age.
And a teacher can also show you that. A teacher can also give you an idea. Senko can give you an idea of where she's working. And
But if you were looking to take away the global developmental diagnosis...
Can you
That's what I was about
overcome
to ask.
global
Why
delay?
is it called global developmental delay?
Because it's a delay across...
But you never catch up.
Across areas. So for global developmental delay, doesn't it have to be at least 3 out of 4?
Yeah.
I think
3
so,
out of 4 areas have to be delayed to get the global
But
developmental
it's not,
delay.
Delayed means that you're delayed, but you catch up.
Not everyone would develop in the same way.
yeah.
So you always have that diagnosis? Or do some kids catch up?
There is... you have the potential to catch up.
Yeah.
I think you would need an assessment.
Yeah.
It's a really confusing diagnosis.
It is because prior to 5, I guess it's assessed differently because they're not in an educational setting. So global developmental delay for me and Stanley was diagnosed, because Stanley was diagnosed just before he turned 2 with autism. So his global developmental delay came from the health visitor questionnaires.
Yeah. Right.
So from his nursery. So his nursery were able to look at where he was cognitively in comparison to where he should be. And that's where it came from. It's, I guess, assessed differently when they go to school because now they're accessing a curriculum and then they, it's different kind of learning.
Yeah.
But I guess it would be an educational psychologist. Yeah. Stanley is making incredible progress.
Yeah.
But he still does have a diagnosis of global developmental delay.
Yeah.
And I know for some people it's important to get rid of that. For me, I think whilst he's still facing difficulties, it's important for me to hold that because I think whilst he's got that, I'm going to get the support that he requires until I'm at a point where I'm okay to say, actually, I'm okay to let go of that.
Amazing.
But right now, I think he can make lots of progress. And I do get lots of comments about, oh, wow, he can do this, he can do that. And, I don't want to make everything negative. But as parents, and we all know, we focus on what they can't do because that's what's highlighted. And I think I don't like those kind of grey area conversations with teachers. I want black and white. I want to know where he is, where should he be, how are we going to get him there? And I'm okay with him never getting there, but I need him to reach his full potential. Yeah. So, and that's all that's important for me, for my children, is to be happy and to reach the potential that
otherwise
they
you
can
would
reach.
feel that you're doing a disservice.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
and
that's
if I've done that for them, and if I've provided that support for them, then I feel like that's my job. As a parent carer, and that's as far as I can go. Yeah. And that, I guess, keeps, because when you're in this world, it's very different, and your mind can be thinking about lots of different things and their future and what that's going to look like.
And when we're not here,
exactly,
that
that's
scares
the biggest
the shit
fear.
out of me.
Yeah, but I think for now that keeps my focus. I'm going to get him what he needs right now.
So where are you girls in regards to acceptance? Are you accepting, or do you struggle?
I think there's always going to be times when you struggle, even if you feel like you've reached that point where you've accepted it all.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a new milestone that comes and brings you back down to that harsh reality that your life and your children's future is so different. I am accepting of autism. I think we both are, but we still have those moments.
Yeah.
And
you're
especially, human. Of course, especially having a child that's non-verbal.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. How do you communicate? Because obviously Bailey is non-verbal at the moment, non-speaking. Yeah. And I struggle with it. And at the moment we've been, she's teaching me to hand lead. She leads what she wants. But obviously it's very small and it's very just for food or for a TV. How do you communicate?
So that's pretty much where we are at home with Hugo.
How old is Hugo, sorry?
He's 6.
Okay.
6.5. So it's hand-over-hand guidance.
Yeah.
At school, though, he will use PECs.
Okay.
So he can create a 4-symboled communication strip. I've tried to implement this at home. I even installed some like really high up shelves in their playroom and put some motivating toys in like sweet jars so that he would have to request them from me to get them. He just scales the wall. He can reach them. I think because he knows that he can communicate with me through hand over hand, through
he doesn't have to.
Body language. He
can get away with it a bit more at home, can't he?
And that's what I always say to you, Jade, because you had your mother-in-law over the other day, and TV's a big thing in their house, and it always was in ours as well. And every time the speech therapist come over, turn off the telly. I was like, I can't. But her mother-in-law turned off the telly. She went on the trampoline. She went on the slide.
So much
she did
with
loads.
my mother-in-law.
But if you done nothing for her,
nothing.
Yeah.
But I think I suppose that's the same with children developing typically. There are different boundaries with your parents. Your parent is your safe person, aren't they? So if you're going to feel most comfortable, it's going to be with your parents.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a different routine as well for our children. That looks different. So Hugo's routine, like you were saying, in school is very different to Hugo's routine at home. So it's trying to break that, and that's hard, isn't it?
And I think theory of mind comes into that as well.
Yeah.
So because we do such a good job of interpreting what our children are trying to communicate all the time, I honestly believe that he thinks he's telepathic. That I know exactly what he needs, so he doesn't need to find another way to communicate.
Does he have any words at all?
No.
Okay.
He tries. He tries to count. He can recite the alphabet, but it's not the full. It's not like he's saying 1, 2, 3. It's the first letter sounding of each word. So he's really trying.
So, and you can understand that with him?
Only because he doesn't do it spontaneously.
Okay.
It will be at a very adult-led activity that we're doing. We may have flashcards. So in that moment, I know what he's trying to say because I can see the visuals that he's trying to say it from. But he doesn't use that spontaneously. And if he did, I probably... it could be any word that he was trying to say.
When did you start all the flashcards? Because I feel that, I might be wrong, but I feel that Bailey is quite young to do all that because she has, when I say she has no communicational skills, she doesn't know what day it is.
There's no engagement.
There's nothing. If I gave her a flashcard, she'd put it in her mouth and eat it.
Yeah, same.
Like, is that what Hugo was like?
Yeah, absolutely. We just always had them around, and they obviously went to a specialist nursery.
Yeah.
Who also use visuals, and then he's gone to an SLD school where they use PECs and visual timetables for everything. So it's always there. I think it's important to remember that even if they're nonverbal, even if they can't make eye contact, they're still taking everything in.
This is what
they're understanding more than you know.
Yeah.
They're picking up on more than you know. So
it's almost ultimately like talking to them as if it was a typical child and they can understand everything you're saying.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think that's difficult because you feel like they don't, but they do.
Yeah.
I just watched this. I was sobbing on Instagram before. I was literally crying on the screen because I've never done that before. It was on Netflix for 20 minutes. It's about a non-verbal girl who uses PECs or some sort of device, and she's telling her story, and it's exactly what she said. She can hear it all and she knows, and she says she's just trapped in her body and she just can't get it out this way, but she can get it out using her PECs.
That's sad.
I was a sobbing mess, but it was also so inspiring for us to understand.
Why can't she get the words out? That's what I struggle. I don't understand. If they want to, why can't they not?
It's surely to do with the brain. Yeah. Because Hugo can spell. Even though he's non-verbal. We've got videos on our accounts where I bought him a really small magnetic board that I attached to the wall, and then just like the alphabet magnets that you would put on a fridge. Yeah. And he can spell out his name, and he can spell out his brother's name.
Fantastic.
But can't say it. The understanding is there. He can rearrange the numbers 1 to 20 in the right order, even if I was to mix them up. It's in there.
He's a clever boy.
Form the words.
Do you think that they're sad about that? Do you think that they get upset about that, or that's just their normal?
It must be incredibly frustrating.
That's what I mean. Like, I feel sad
and
for
I think
that.
that's where the behaviours come in, and that's what I've kind of in the past when I've worked in schools, and that's where the field that I've been in, because if you think for a child that doesn't have communication, who wants to communicate, that must be incredibly frustrating. And if you can't communicate it verbally, you're going to communicate it with behaviour. And I think it's unpicking what they're trying to communicate. And I think when you know the why, you can manage the behaviour until a behaviour doesn't just happen. For no reason.
Yeah.
And you hear that a lot, and you hear that a lot sometimes in schools where teachers will say, oh, they hit that child for no reason. There is never no reason. Yeah. It's just you have to find that reason. Yeah. And if they can't verbally communicate that, then we need to unpick that. So it must be incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
So do you think for Jay, just as because you're 3 years later on, do you think she should start thinking that if Bailey Bow, for now, and please God, one day they will all talk, treat her as a non-verbal child, to use some sort of tools now and different things to communicate as if she was a non-verbal child? Like, what could she use now?
Absolutely. I mean, even if you think about a typical child, like with your older child, like when they were learning to speak, what were they picking up from you? What were you doing? So you were probably saying keywords, or you were holding items up and saying like shoes.
Yes.
You know? So with a child who physically can't form that language, why not do it with a picture, with a visual?
I've got all these visuals by my door that I was going to give to you, and I knew you were going to say, I can't use those yet. I'm going to give them to you because they're all exactly what you need, and use them when you're ready.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to round this up, but I just want to say I think you've given us so much knowledge, and I think that it will help so many other people. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
No,
We've really,
you've been
really enjoyed
absolutely
it.
brilliant. What you bring, honestly, I can't wait for your help.
That's
So
it.
we'll talk later.
Yes, we will. But yeah, give the girls a follow, Send Mummies, because they give such brilliant advice. And yeah, we're so grateful for you girls. Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.